Well, hello everyone. My name is Gary Chevalier, and I have the distinct honor of being the residency director for the Cross Creek residency at Cross Creek Church in Colleyville, Texas. But more important than who I am is actually what I've just done, and I am currently in year 2 of a residency program. So just a couple of years ago, I got a directive from our lead pastor that he wanted to launch a residency program at our church. And so I have literally just walked through the first 2 years of what that looks like. And so today, what I want to do is spend a little time with you and let's talk about what does it take to get a residency up and running from the ground to 2+ years in. And so the very first thing I can do is one of my favorite things to tell you is a quote from Stephen Covey, and that is, begin with the end in mind, right? If you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to get there, and you don't know what places to go, things to do, none of that. You're just kind of, shooting a shotgun at the side of a barn, right? You're not necessarily going to hit the target that you're looking at. And so the most important thing you can do then is start with, hey, why are we doing this residency? What are the outcomes that we want? What are the goals that we have? Is it to benefit our church? Is it to benefit young leaders? Is it both? Is it to benefit the churches in our area? What is the purpose behind the residency program? And when you start to define that, then you can just start to define what your program needs to look like. And so as a former educator, I like to call this a portrait of a graduate. So what do we want a graduate of our program to look like? What skills do they need to have? What competencies do they need to have? When I send them out, I want to be confident that they, A, B, C, D, E, F, right? Those are the things that you have to outline. What kind of a leader are you trying to produce? What's their spiritual life going to be like? All of these questions that you have to ask, because those are going to be the things that determine what your residency program looks like from there on out. And they're also going to tell you if you were successful at it or not. Because again, if you don't know what you're going for, when you get there, you don't know what you hit. You just landed on something. So defining this portrait of a graduate, what are the skills and competencies that we want our graduates to have is super important. So right now, for those of you watching this after the fact, I want you to take a few moments, hit pause, and then just discuss with those around you. Maybe it's your team, maybe it's another group of residency directors, and you guys are talking about how can we get this started. But take a few moments now to hit pause and define what are the most important competencies for your graduates. All right, now that we've outlined those core competencies, that portrait of a graduate, so the next thing we need to do in our planning is start to think about, okay, how can we structure this program? And I'll be honest with you, when I was working on this portion, I spent the first 6, maybe 8 months talking to anybody that would talk to me, going and visiting residency programs, learning from everyone and how they did that. And I'm just going to tell you from what I found, every residency program is as individual as a fingerprint. I didn't see any residency program that looked exactly like any other residency program. And so when you go through to structure your program, there's some basic questions that you're going to have to ask and just figure out, what does our residency program need to look like? Now, I've put a little grid up here. And so, for instance, you've got to ask, what's our program length going to be? I've seen programs as small as 3 months up to 2 years. And there are successful programs that run the gamut. And so you need to decide, where are you? Now, our residency program, we settled in on 1 year. But what's going to be best for you? What's going to accomplish your goals to get you to that portrait of a graduate? You also got to decide, when are you going to start? Are you going to start in January at the beginning of the calendar year, or maybe June for people who just graduated college in May, and so they'll start in June, or perhaps, excuse me, perhaps you start in August which is, when people's normal rhythm of college, you start your new semester in August. So would you start then? Or is it ongoing, kind of asynchronous? Like as soon as I get a resident, I can plug them in. What is that going to look like for you? Ask those questions and figure those details out. Do you have target qualifications for your residents? Is there something specific that you're looking for, like maybe a target age? Are you only people who have just graduated college? What about someone who's been in the workforce for a while and God is calling to ministry? Are they eligible? Questions you've got to ask. What about, do they have to demonstrate a call to ministry? Or are you looking for people who are exploring, hey, God may be calling me to the ministry, let me come see. Do you require a college degree? Or is someone who hasn't graduated okay? Married or single or both? What does it matter? All of those questions you're going to need to ask and figure out on your target of who's going to be a resident in your program. And then the resident schedule. Can it be full-time or part-time? I've seen it both ways. Some residency programs, the resident is only part-time at the church. Others, they're full-time. Here at our church, our residents are full-time, but that was the choice that we made. You've got to decide full-time or part-time. Are you going to meet with your residents as a part of their curriculum? If so, are you going to meet with them weekly, monthly, quarterly? What is that going to look like? And are they spending their time with their individual disciplines, or are you rotating those disciplines around? What are those things going to look like? What is that resident schedule going to be? And what about the curriculum? If you're going to have curriculum, what are you going to teach? What is that going to look like? How many hours a week is going to be required for curriculum? Are you going to make them write papers, or just books they're reading? Are you doing discussion? All of those decisions you've got to make around curriculum and schedule. What about housing? Housing is super important for a young adult, particularly if they're coming out of college where they were in a dormitory or an apartment style housing. So is housing something you're going to provide? Are they on their own? If you are providing it, are you doing host homes? Are you doing apartments or something like that? What does housing look like for you? And then funding. Are you going to pay the residents? I researched and found some churches that require the residents to raise their own support to then come and study with the pastors on staff. We chose to pay, but there are several residency programs that I know of that the residents raise their support. So you've got to decide what that looks like. If you are paying them, how much? And then do you pay them as an employee and take taxes out, or do they contract labor where you just pay them a lump sum, or what does that look like? All of those are decisions you're going to have to make. And then also the coaches that you pair your residents with. What do those coaches need to look like? Do you have a minimum years of experience? Are there qualifications that they have to meet? So like for me, I want my coaches to have 10 years of experience in ministry. But I know of a church residency program that they just paired a new resident with a person who had graduated college and only been a student pastor for 1 year. And then they paired a resident with that person. Now, I don't particularly think that was a great plan, but it's not my residency program. You've got to decide what the qualifications for your coaches look like. And then are you going to continue to train them? Or you just pretty much let them go? Do you have specific ways that you want the coach to interact with the residents? Are there things that you require of those coaches? What does that look like? Again, all decisions that you've got to make. And there's so many more that you're going to come across that just honestly, we don't have enough time to grid out, right? Are you going to develop educational partnerships if they want to start a master's degree with a local seminary or a seminary online or something like that? What about recruiting? You've got to decide how to do recruiting. That's one of the I'm finding out recruiting can be hard. Finding people to come be a part of your program. So what does the recruiting need to look like? How do you launch the residents at the end of the program? Your church probably can't hire them all. So how do you help launch them? What does that look like? So here's what I'll tell you, or what we'll discuss for the next few moments rather, is when I talk to residency directors around, one of the biggest things that we are all searching for is curriculum. What are the best curriculum that we can find to teach the things that we want to make sure our residents know? So I want to tell you, with the group around you right now, hit pause for a few minutes and let's discuss what are some of the best curriculum resources that you found that contribute to your residents' overall development. Okay, welcome back. Now, we've done our planning, we've got our portrait of a graduate, we figured out how we're going to structure the residency program. So now it's time to move on to step 2 and launch and execute that first year. So there are 4 things I think, that really need to take a front seat during that first year, just outside of the regular taking care of business with, making sure the residents are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But 4 things that I think are huge kind of macros that you need to make sure that you keep your finger on during that first year. And the first one is communication. I cannot stress enough how important communication is during that first year. Communication with your coaches and communication with your residents, right? You are charting a new path, and the person who has thought most about that path is you. Your residents and your coaches, they're trying to figure it out as they go along. And so make sure that you're communicating well with your coaches, having regular meetings, giving them resources, talk-back sessions where you can find out how the residents are doing and what the coaches need from you. All of those sorts of things, make sure that your coaches are well aware and that you keep them in the loop and always apprised of what's going on. And then meetings with your residents as well. Again, you're trying to hit a moving target right now because you're doing the program as you're executing the program. So communicate with them and find out, is what you're doing working? Do the residents see the value in the steps that you're taking? And so I'll tell you, for me, I do bi-monthly meetings with the residents. So every 2 months, I sit down one-on-one with the residents to find out how it's going, what they're learning, what they're thinking. And then I have quarterly meetings with my resident coaches to sit down with the coaches and be like, hey, tell me what you're seeing. How's it going? Hey, these are the things that we're talking about in our weekly resident colloquium together. Make sure that you're reinforcing those things as you're working with your resident. And so that's what I choose to do. But you know what? You may choose to do something different, and that's fine. But figure out how you can have effective over communication with your residents and your coaches. Okay, the second thing in executing year 1 that I believe is super important is flexibility. You've got to be able to move and flow and change and shift based on the things that you're seeing. And so Helmuth von Moltke was a Prussian general back in the 1800s, but he said this, and I love it so much. He said, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. And I think that's true in pretty much every scenario. You can plan and you can think, I'm going to do this, and if this happens, I'll do that, and lay it all out. But when it actually starts, you've got to be flexible. You've got to be able to make changes. Don't be afraid to make changes on the fly. Don't be afraid to look at something that's not working and say, you know what, we're going to stop that and try something new because I thought that would work, but it ain't working. And remember, a lot of this you're going to find out from that communication piece where you are regularly communicating with your residents and your coaches. So don't be afraid to make changes and be flexible in how you work, particularly that first year. So take a moment right now with the people around you, hit pause, and let's discuss what are some year 1 challenges that surprised you, that you did not see coming, that you had to adapt to. How did you handle those? And then how do you wish you to handle them? Maybe you made a choice and it didn't turn out to be all you wanted to be. So how else could you have handled it? So take a moment, discuss that with the people around you. All right, so the third thing for executing that for year 1 is I want to encourage you to maintain visibility in the church. And so I found it is super important to keep your church aware of the things that the residents are doing. particularly if your church is funding the residents and paying them a salary and paying for their housing and those sorts of things. People want to know that what they're investing in is actually working. And so find ways to make sure that your church knows what's going on with your residents. You know, the old adage, out of sight, out of mind, is a thing for a reason. If people don't see what's going on, they forget about it. And we want to make sure the church knows that we are investing in young leaders and it is being successful. So help make them see what's going on. Get them up on the main stage platform to do announcements or run video pieces about them on social media or in the announcements at church. You know, make sure that your lead pastor is highlighting the things that are going on in the residency when they can, which I can't even stress how important it is to have the lead pastor on your side. But do everything you can do to put the residents in front of people so that they're aware that we are training these young leaders, and these young leaders are growing and developing in their competencies so that they are going to be effective ministers down the road. So take a moment with the people around you then, and let's say, what are some ways that you keep your residency program visible in the church? Discuss that for a few moments. All right, and coming back to the final step while executing in year one, I'm going to say celebrate the wins, right? Remember, what gets celebrated gets repeated. And so you want to take the time to celebrate the wins, whether big or small, right? If you go watch your student resident and they teach on a Wednesday night or a Sunday night or whenever your student gathering is, and you watch them teach and they crush it, man, make sure that you let that student know, or that resident know, they did a great job. Make sure you tell the other residents, wow, what a great job they did. Make sure that all the resident coaches are knowing, wow, this resident did a killer job on X. And that's going to inspire coaches as well to be looking for opportunities for their resident to shine. And you make sure that you celebrate that so that they understand that they have done awesome, and it encourages them to keep going. Plus, celebrate the big win of completing the residency, right? I want to encourage you, you're in year one. What are you going to do to celebrate that end of year of the residency? Is it just, hey, congrats, you finished. All right, see ya. You know, no, take some time to celebrate them. Do something, the pivotal, the moment, to really ingrain in them the accomplishment that they've done of spending the time in your residency that's going to help them and launch them. So when they're out in the real world and it gets hard, they can look back and go, wow, I put in a lot of work and God did some big stuff in my life to prepare me for what I'm in the middle of right now. So take time, celebrate those wins, particularly the big win at the end of residency. So for you guys right now, hit pause for a moment and talk with the people around you about what are some ways that you celebrate the wins. Big wins, small wins, doesn't matter. How do you celebrate those wins with your residents? All right, after we have done all four of those things for our first year, we've had good communication, we've been flexible, we've kept the program visible, we have celebrated the wins, and we're moving on to year two. And the first thing I can tell you to do is, man, bake in a culture of evaluation and evolution, right? You're starting year two, but it doesn't have to look exactly like year one. And honestly, it probably shouldn't look exactly like year one, because there are going to be some things that you had to do. Remember, you were flexible, you changed on the fly, right? So make sure that the culture of the residency is that we are consistently evaluating what we're doing and getting better, and we are making whatever changes need to be made. I like to say, barbecue sacred cows, right? And since you're starting the residency program, you don't even have to let sacred cows get in the way. Make sure that you are consistently evaluating and evolving to make things better and grow. So, with your friends around you, take a minute now and let's talk about what are some changes that you made between year one and year two in order to make it better. All right, now after you bake in a culture of evaluation and evolution, I'm going to encourage you to support and leverage your alumni. So what do I mean by that? Well, number one, support. I say keep in touch with them. Let them know that you are their advocate from now until Jesus comes back. That's one of the things that all of our residents know, is that once you sign on the dotted line with me, I then become your biggest cheerleader. And so I can tell you where our residents are serving right now, and I keep in touch with them. For me, my goal is every 6 months they need to hear from me in some way, shape, form, or fashion. That's me. You decide how you want to do that, but support your residents as they're out there. Let them know that they always have the lifeline of coming back to you, of coming back to their coach when they run and get in a jam, or they have a question, or they want to celebrate something. Celebrate with them. Keep that connection to your residents as they go. Not only because it's good and healthy for them, but also because you'll be leveraging that relationship, because who's going to be your best recruiter? The people who have gone through your residency, right? It's just like colleges. You graduate from college, you tell someone, oh, I had a great experience there. Well, they're likely going to go there because you just advocated for it. When your residents are out there, they're going to come across people and they'll be like, oh, yeah, I went to such and such a residency. I had a great experience. I highly encourage you apply, right? So make sure that you're keeping in contact with your residents, again, not only to support them, but also to leverage them as a recruiting tool. So take a few moments now at the table around you and discuss, hey, what are some of your best practices for keeping in touch with your residents and supporting them as alumni of your program? All right, now that we're back after supporting and leveraging your alumni, the last thing I want to encourage you to do while you're in year 2 is to dream about the future. Don't get stuck in the here and now and the nitty gritty of, hey, I'm doing this and doing this. Yes, all of that is important for sure. But think about the future of your residency program. Where do you want it to be in 3 years? So that at the 5-year marker, it looks like this. Where do you want it to be in 10 years, at the 10-year marker? What are some things that you are interested in and seeing develop in your residency program? Start that dreaming process now, because you can start to weave those things in the next couple of years to get you where you want to go. But if you don't have that vision for the future, you're going to stay in the vision that you have for now. And we needed that vision to get us to the residency program that we have now. But now it's time for fresh wind, fresh fire to take us to that next step. So start dreaming now about what the residency is going to look like, so you can start to incorporate that as you evaluate and evolve throughout this year. So around your table now, hit pause, take a minute, and talk about it. Maybe you just need to start dreaming for the future. What dreams do you have for the future of your residency program? All right, friends, thank you for spending the time with me as we talk through these first 2 years of residency. And man, I appreciate you just taking the time to listen and go. I hope that you found this few minutes that we've had together to be thought-provoking and very helpful. And I just want to encourage you, listen, if there's a way that I can help you in the future, if you want to bounce some ideas off me, or if you want to, I don't know, ask a question about something I've seen or experienced, my contact information is right there. I would love to be a resource for you and what you've got going on. And I want to encourage you to pay it forward to others, right? You're starting your residency program and you're going to be in year 2 pretty quick, just like I'm finishing up year 2. So man, look back and help people along the way that you found. So let's continually set up a culture of paying it forward. It's what I love about this Residency Roundtable group that we have. Every one of us is in a different path on our journey, and every one of us is capable of helping someone ahead of us and helping someone behind us. So let's keep this idea thing flowing and generating. And again, if there's anything that I can do to be assistance to you, reach out, because know that I'm on your side, I'm on your team. When we all succeed, it is the best thing for the kingdom of Christ. So I want to be a part of that. So thanks again. Have a great day.